Have you ever stood in front of the mirror, running your fingers through your hair, and wondered why it keeps falling no matter how gentle, expensive, or natural your routine is? You oil it, you mask it, you switch shampoos, you even stop styling. Yet the hair fall continues, quietly stealing your confidence, strand by strand. For millions of women, this isn't just a beauty issue, it's emotional, exhausting, and deeply personal. Here's the truth. Most people never tell you. Hair loss in women is rarely about hair alone. It's often your body whispering, sometimes screaming, that it's missing something essential. And if that missing piece stays ignored, no serum, no oil, no viral remedy will ever work. What if I told you there is one vitamin, just one, that plays a master role in waking up sleeping hair follicles, reducing excessive shedding, and restoring the natural growth cycle in women? A vitamin so powerful that deficiency alone can trigger sudden hair fall, thinning at the crown, widening part lines, and weak, lifeless strands. And the worst part? Most women are deficient in it without even knowing. Today, we're not guessing. We're not following trends. We're breaking down the science, the signs, and the solutions, so you finally understand why your hair is falling and how to stop it at the root. Stay with me till the end because the payoff might change how you look at your hair forever. And if you care about real solutions, not myths, welcome to Care and Cure Corner. Hair loss in women is never a simple copy-paste of what happens in men, and this misunderstanding is where most treatments fail. In women, hair thinning is deeply connected to the internal environment of the body rather than just genetics alone. Female hair follicles are extremely sensitive to hormonal shifts, nutritional gaps, emotional stress, and metabolic changes. Even a slight imbalance can push large numbers of follicles out of their growth phase and into the shedding phase at the same time. This is why women often notice sudden, diffuse hair fall. Hair everywhere on the pillow, in the shower, on the comb, rather than clean bald patches. The scalp may look normal, yet the volume quietly disappears, leaving the part line wider and the ponytail thinner. This pattern is a warning sign that the body is struggling to support healthy hair growth from within. Unlike men, whose hair loss is often driven by androgens acting locally on the scalp, women experience hair fall as a whole body response. Hormonal fluctuations during puberty, pregnancy, postpartum, perimenopause, and menopause can shock the hair cycle. Add chronic stress, poor sleep, restrictive dieting, or gut absorption issues, and the follicles receive the message that the body is in survival mode. When that happens, hair becomes a low priority. The body conserves energy by pulling nutrients away from hair growth and redirecting them toward vital organs. What many women mistake for just stress or seasonal shedding is often the first visible sign of a deeper nutritional depletion silently developing over months or even years. This is where the danger lies, because the scalp doesn't scream for help, it whispers. Hair fall increases gradually, texture changes subtly, and regrowth becomes slower and weaker. Women often respond by changing shampoos, applying oils, or trying viral remedies, unaware that no topical solution can override a body that lacks the internal signals needed to keep follicles active. And among all the internal factors involved, there is one deficiency that quietly disrupts the hair cycle more than most. One that keeps follicles dormant, weak, and unresponsive even when everything else seems right. Understanding this connection is crucial, because once you see how deeply this missing element controls hair behavior, the real cause of female hair loss starts to come into sharp focus. And it leads directly to the vitamin that decides whether your follicles stay asleep or finally wake up. That missing element is vitamin D, and its role in women's hair health goes far beyond what most people imagine. Often labeled as just a bone vitamin, vitamin D actually functions more like a hormone inside the body, influencing hundreds of processes, including the life cycle of your hair follicles. Inside the scalp, every healthy hair follicle contains vitamin D receptors. These receptors act like switches that tell the follicle when to grow, when to rest, and when to shed. When vitamin D levels are sufficient, these switches turn on the anagen phase, the active growth stage, allowing hair to grow thicker, stronger, and for a longer duration. But when vitamin D is low, those switches fail to activate, leaving follicles stuck in a resting or dormant state even though they are still alive. This is why vitamin D deficiency doesn't always cause immediate baldness, but instead leads to progressive thinning, excessive shedding, and hair that simply refuses to grow past a certain length. Women often describe it as hair that stopped responding. No matter how much care they give, the strands remain weak and lifeless. Research has consistently shown that women experiencing diffuse hair loss, telogen effluvium, or female pattern thinning frequently have significantly lower vitamin D levels than women with healthy hair density. The deficiency quietly shortens the growth phase of hair while pushing more follicles into shedding at the same time, creating the illusion that hair is falling faster than it can grow. What makes this especially concerning is how silently vitamin D deficiency develops. You may not feel sick, blood reports may never be checked, and yet your scalp is already paying the price. Over time, follicles that remain inactive for too long begin to shrink, producing finer and finer strands until the hair becomes barely visible. This is the stage where women panic, believing the damage is permanent. But here's the critical point. Follicles that are dormant due to vitamin D deficiency are often not dead. They are simply waiting for the right signal to restart. That signal, however, must arrive before prolonged deficiency causes irreversible miniaturization. And this raises an urgent question that cannot be ignored. If vitamin D is so powerful in controlling the hair growth switch, how do you recognize when your hair loss is actually a sign of this deficiency before the follicles weaken beyond recovery? The body always leaves clues, and learning to read those signs is where real prevention begins. The body is remarkably intelligent, and when vitamin D levels begin to drop, it rarely stays silent, especially when it comes to hair. One of the earliest signs is a sudden increase in daily hair shedding that feels out of proportion to your routine. You may notice more strands on your pillow, in the shower drain, or wrapped around your fingers after washing, even though you haven't changed your products or lifestyle. Along with this, the scalp can start feeling unusually sensitive or sore, almost as if the hair roots are tender. This discomfort is often dismissed, but it reflects inflammation and weakened follicle activity linked to low vitamin D signaling in the scalp. As the deficiency deepens, the texture of the hair begins to change. Strands that were once resilient become dry, brittle, and lifeless, breaking easily and losing their natural shine. Regrowth slows noticeably, baby hairs stop appearing, and the hairline or parting gradual Y looks wider. Many women also report that their hair simply refuses to grow beyond a certain length, snapping before it ever looks full. What makes this stage confusing is that these hair changes rarely occur alone. They are usually accompanied by persistent fatigue, frequent infections, low mood, body aches, or muscle weakness, symptoms that seem unrelated at first but are classic indicators of vitamin D deficiency. Ignoring these signs can be risky because prolonged deficiency doesn't just increase shedding, it changes the behavior of the follicle itself. When hair follicles stay deprived of vitamin D for too long, they become less responsive to growth signals, producing thinner strands with each cycle. This is where temporary hair fall can quietly progress into long-term thinning if the root cause isn't addressed. Many women mistakenly focus on stress or aging at this point, unaware that a simple blood test could reveal the real issue. By the time the scalp starts showing through or volume loss becomes obvious, the deficiency has usually been present for a long time. The warning here is subtle but serious. Hair loss caused by vitamin D deficiency is most reversible in its early stages. The longer it is ignored, the harder it becomes to fully restore density. Recognizing these signs is only the first step, because once you identify vitamin D as the trigger, the next question becomes critical. How exactly does this vitamin intervene at the follicle level to stop hair fall and restart growth? And why does correcting it make such a visible difference in women's hair recovery? To understand why correcting vitamin D levels can dramatically change the course of hair fall, you have to look at what happens deep inside the scalp at a cellular level. Hair follicles are not passive structures. They are biologically active mini organs that constantly respond to hormonal and nutritional signals. Vitamin D works by binding to specific receptors located in the cells of the hair follicle, especially in the dermal papilla, the control center that decides how strong, thick, and long each strand will grow. When vitamin D attaches to these receptors, it activates genes responsible for cell division, follicle renewal, and the transition of hair from the resting phase back into the active growth phase. This is the moment where shedding slows and regrowth begins. When vitamin D is deficient, this entire signaling system weakens. Follicles lose the instruction to stay in the growth phase and prematurely shift into shedding. Over time, repeated cycles of early shedding cause the follicle to shrink, producing finer, weaker hair. This is why women with low vitamin D often experience not just hair fall, but a gradual loss of volume and density. Restoring vitamin D doesn't instantly grow new hair, but it stabilizes the hair cycle. First, excessive shedding reduces. Then, the follicles regain strength, allowing healthier strands to emerge. This gradual reversal is what makes fifth vitamin D so powerful. It addresses the root mechanism rather than masking the symptom. However, there is an important warning that many women overlook. Vitamin D does not work in isolation. Its effectiveness depends on proper absorption and balance within the body. If levels are restored incorrectly or inconsistently, follicles may receive mixed signals, delaying recovery. This is why some women feel frustrated after taking supplements without seeing immediate results. The scalp environment needs sustained, adequate vitamin D exposure to fully reset the hair cycle. When done correctly, the difference becomes visible over weeks and months, not days. Less hair on the comb, stronger regrowth at the crown, and improved texture overall. But this brings up a crucial concern. If vitamin D is so essential for hair growth, why are so many women still deficient despite eating well and living healthy lifestyles? The answer lies in modern habits, hidden risk factors, and absorption challenges that quietly drain vitamin D levels without obvious warning. And understanding those reasons is key to preventing hair loss from returning again. Despite increased health awareness, vitamin D deficiency remains alarmingly common among women, and the reasons are often hidden in everyday habits that seem harmless. One of the biggest factors is lack of effective sun exposure. Modern lifestyles keep women indoors for most of the day, and even when they do step outside, sunscreen, covered clothing, pollute. Ion and glass windows block the UVB rays needed for the skin to produce vitamin D. In many regions, especially urban environments, sunlight is either too weak or exposure is too brief to meet the body's needs. Over time, this silent deprivation directly affects hair follicles that depend on vitamin D signaling to stay active. Diet also plays a much smaller role than most women assume. Very few foods naturally contain significant amounts of vitamin D, and even healthy diets can fall short. Fat-free or low-fat eating patterns further reduce absorption because vitamin D is fat-soluble and requires dietary fat to be utilized properly. Hormonal conditions such as PCOS, thyroid imbalances, and insulin resistance can interfere with vitamin D metabolism, increasing deficiency risk even in women who eat well. Pregnancy, breastfeeding, and menopause further deplete stores, often without routine testing or supplementation. Darker skin tones also require longer sun exposure to produce adequate vitamin D, making deficiency more likely despite similar outdoor habits. Another overlooked issue is gut health. Poor digestion, inflammation, or conditions like IBS can reduce vitamin D absorption, meaning supplements or food sources may not be fully effective. Chronic stress and lack of sleep further disrupt hormonal balance, indirectly lowering vitamin D availability at the cellular level. The most dangerous part is that deficiency develops slowly and rarely causes immediate pain, so it goes unnoticed until symptoms like hair loss, fatigue, and weak immunity appear. By then, follicles may already be struggling to recover. This creates a critical situation. Many women unknowingly correct everything except the way vitamin D should actually be restored. Taking random doses, relying on sunlight alone, or ignoring absorption factors can delay results and cause frustration. The real solution lies not just in knowing why deficiency happens, but in understanding the safest and most effective way to restore vitamin D levels so hair follicles receive a consistent, reliable signal to grow without creating new imbalances in the process. Despite living in an age of supplements and health awareness, vitamin D deficiency remains extremely common in women, and the reasons are far more subtle than most realize. One of the biggest contributors is modern lifestyle itself. Women spend most of their time indoors, working, studying, managing homes, while natural sunlight exposure continues to shrink. Even when stepping outside, sunscreen, covered clothing, pollution, and glass windows block the UVB rays required for vitamin D synthesis. Short, irregular sun exposure simply isn't enough for the body to maintain healthy levels, and over time, this quiet deprivation directly impacts hair follicles that depend on vitamin D signaling to stay active and productive. Diet adds another layer of misunderstanding. Many women believe that eating clean automatically protects them from deficiencies. But the reality is that very few foods naturally contain vitamin D. Fat-free and low-fat diets, often followed for weight control, further worsen the problem because vitamin D is fat-soluble and requires healthy fats for proper absorption. Hormonal conditions such as PCOS, thyroid imbalance, insulin resistance, and adrenal stress interfere with how vitamin D is metabolized, increasing deficiency risk even when intake seems adequate. Pregnancy, breastfeeding, and menopause silently drain vitamin D stores, yet routine screening is rarely prioritized during these phases. Skin tone also plays a role that is often ignored. Women with deeper skin pigmentation require significantly longer sun exposure to produce the same amount of vitamin D as lighter skin tones. Add digestive issues like bloating, IBS, or chronic gut inflammation, and absorption becomes even weaker. Stress and poor sleep further disrupt hormonal pathways that regulate vitamin D activation in the body. The most dangerous aspect is how slowly deficiency develops. There is no immediate pain, no dramatic symptom at first, just gradual hair thinning, low energy, weaker immunity, and mood changes that are easy to dismiss. This creates a frustrating cycle where women try supplements inconsistently, rely on sunlight alone, or stop too early when results don't appear instantly. Hair follicles, already sensitive, receive mixed or insufficient signals, delaying recovery and leading many to believe that vitamin D didn't work for them. But the truth is not about whether vitamin D works. It's about how it is restored. Knowing the correct form, timing, absorption support, and consistency makes all the difference. Because when vitamin D is restored the right way, hair follicles finally receive a steady green signal to grow. And understanding that correct approach is what separates temporary improvement from real, lasting hair recovery. Restoring vitamin D for hair recovery is not about quick fixes or random dosing. It's about sending your hair follicles a clear, consistent signal that the body is safe, nourished, and ready to grow again. Sunlight remains the most natural trigger, but it must be intentional. Short, regular exposure to early morning or late afternoon sun on uncovered skin allows the body to synthesize vitamin D gradually, the way it was designed to. However, for many women, sunlight alone is not enough to correct an existing deficiency, especially when hair loss has already started. This is where supplementation becomes necessary, but it must be done correctly to avoid wasted effort or imbalance. The most effective form for hair health is vitamin D3, as it is better absorbed and more biologically active than other forms. Yet even D3 will not work optimally if the body lacks the nutrients needed to absorb and activate it. Healthy fats are essential because vitamin D dissolves in fat, not water. Magnesium plays a crucial role in converting vitamin D into its active form, and without it, levels may appear normal on paper but remain ineffective at the cellular level. This explains why some women take supplements faithfully yet see little improvement in hair fall. Consistency matters just as much. Sporadic intake confuses the hair cycle, while steady correction allows follicles to gradually return to a normal growth rhythm. There is also a gentle but important warning here. Oversupplementation or unsupervised high doses can create imbalances, leading to new symptoms that distract from hair recovery. Vitamin D works best when guided by awareness, ideally through testing, proper dosing, and patience. Hair follicles respond slowly because they operate on cycles measured in weeks and months, not days. The first real sign of success is not sudden growth, but reduced shedding. Only after that does stronger regrowth begin, often as fine baby hairs that slowly thicken over time. This phase requires trust in the process because stopping too early can reverse progress before it becomes visible. When restored properly, vitamin D does more than stop hair fall. It improves scalp health, supports immunity, balances mood, and strengthens the body as a whole. Hair becomes a reflection of internal recovery, rather than a constant source of stress. But this is where many women miss the final step. Correcting a deficiency is powerful, but maintaining balance is what protects results long term. Hair loss often returns when old habits quietly resurface and the body slips back into depletion. Understanding this turns vitamin D from a temporary solution into a long-term ally for hair health, and that realization sets the stage for the most important takeaway of all: how lasting hair recovery is built not on fear of hair fall, but on respect for what your body has been trying to tell you all along. Here's the powerful takeaway. Your hair was never the problem. Your deficiency was for so long. Women are made to believe that hair fall is normal, genetic, or something they must simply accept with age. But when the body lacks vitamin D, hair loss becomes a symptom, not a destiny. Imagine your hair follicles like light-sensitive switches. Vitamin D is the electricity. Without it, the switch stays off, no matter how much you beg it to work. Once restored, something remarkable happens. Shedding slows, strands feel stronger, regrowth begins, and confidence quietly returns. But here's the most important part. Vitamin D is not a magic pill. It works best when paired with patience, consistency, and respect for your body's signals. Hair recovery is not overnight, but it is absolutely possible when you fix the root cause instead of chasing surface solutions. If you've tried everything and still feel helpless, let this be your reset moment. Get your levels checked, nourish your body, give your follicles what they've been silently asking for, because healthy hair is not about trends, it's about internal balance. Your hair is listening to your body every single day. The question is, are you listening back? If this video helped you understand your hair in a new way, stay connected for science-backed, honest wellness guidance. This is not about quick fixes. This is about lasting care. Welcome again to Care and Cure Corner, where we don't just talk about problems. We talk about real solutions.